So I may have mentioned this, and I don't remember exactly if I do it frequently, but one of the things that I do on the side of working for the church here is I do training, and I help people like with public speaking and business goals and stuff. So right now, I'm working with a group of students, a group of teenagers from a very nice school district. I'm not going to mention the school district, but I'm working with them for 4 weeks on a program. So I was talking to one of the administrators, and they said to me, you got to be careful when we're doing these summer programs. Some of these kids, they really have a lot of conflicts over the summer because of their vacation plans. And I said, I know. I said, well, my wife and I just came back from vacation because my wife and I and my kids, we went to Lancaster. And, it was nice. It was Amish country. It was cool to see all those farms, and it was so quiet, and it was peaceful. We were there for like 5 days, and it was really, really nice. So, I told her, I said, yeah, my wife and I just came back. And she goes, yeah, well, these kids, you have to really plan in advance because they take long vacations. And I said, well, what do you mean? And they said, well, this one family, they're going to Hawaii and Australia, and they're going for like 4 months. Like, they're just going to be gone. Like, they're just going to leave, and they're going to live there for like the summer. And I'm like, oh. And then she said, another family, they're going to Europe. They're going to be there all the way up until Labor Day. And I said, oh, really? I said, the whole time. And she said, yeah, they're just going to go there the whole time. And then she said, where did you go on vacation again? I'm like, I went to Lancaster. And I went for 4 whole days, like 24-hour periods, all of it, And I, felt really uncomfortable talking because I'm like, well, that wasn't really a vacation. Or even when I went to Florida, I had a really long vacation. But Florida, compared to all those places, and you start to do that. And then I stopped myself thinking about what we were going to be covering in church over the next 3 weeks. And I asked myself this question: when do we stop doing that? Like, when does it end with that? Do you know what I'm talking about? Where you stop comparing yourself and what you did or what you didn't do to what other people are doing. Like, does that end? And I've come to find that the answer to that question for most of us is actually no. It doesn't end. In fact, for the most part, it kind of increases with age, but it takes different forms. And we go through this thing that we're going to be calling the comparison trap. And we've covered this before. This is an awesome series that we're covering for the next 3 weeks. And the comparison trap happens when we have those moments. When we have those moments where we start to look at what other people are doing. And some of us in this culture, a lot of us, I should say, we suffer from something called OCD. But it's not the OCD that you're used to hearing. It's obsessive comparison disorder. That means that we're endlessly, needlessly checking what's going on with the people around us and comparing it to see how we're doing in our lives with ourselves. Obsessive comparison disorder. This gets so bad, folks. It gets so bad that sometimes we compare our comparison of other people to how other people compare themselves to other people, right? So we're like, well, I compare myself. I mean, I'm always wanting to make a little more money than this guy, but I'm not like that one that he went and bought a house in the same neighborhood as his brother-in-law just so he could show him that he could afford that. Like, you start to say, well, I'm not as bad as him, or I'm not as bad as her. And why do we do this? Like, really, why do we end up in a place where we're always looking to see what other people are doing? I'll tell you, because we have a desire to answer one question. One question. And that question is, how am I doing? I mean, really, like, how am I doing? Am I doing okay? Like, am I doing enough? Am I par? Am I like at the standard? Like, or does God want me to do more? And so when we try to answer that question, it takes us to places that we normally wouldn't go. And the place that we're going to be looking at today that we shouldn't go, but we end up going, is a place that we call the land of Ur. Now, when you hear the land of Ur, some of you that are into the Bible and have read through the Old Testament, you'll think of Abraham, because he was from a place called Ur, U-R. But that's not the land that we're going to be talking about today. What we're talking about is the land of Ur, E-R, okay, E-R. And how this looks and how this works, I'm going to explain to you, because you're going to see how frequently you visit the land of Ur. So, let's talk about the things that we want in our lives. James Clear, he wrote a book called Habits. And he said most people, they set up their goals And all of us, for the most part, have the same goals. Now, there's a list of some goals that we have on the screen here. Now, these goals, you might say, well, they seem a little materialistic or whatever, but a lot of times God leads us to want to improve in different areas of our lives. And they kind of funnel themselves into these. So, rich, okay? Now remember, we define rich, I don't know how you define rich, but we define rich as having more money than you need to survive. Remember, a lot of people in different parts of the world, different parts of the country, they don't have more money than they need to survive. They're looking for money to survive. So if you make more money than you need to physically survive, you're rich. Amen? Right? We're living in North America. This is not as much of an issue as it is in different countries. So rich, but a lot of us, we want to be financially better. We want to be out of debt, right? So we want to be rich. You want to be skinny. We want to be smart. We want to, we want to get healthy. We want to get more knowledge. Some of us, we want to be tall, and you don't know how to get taller, but you're trying to figure that out. Okay, some of us, we all want to look good, right? We want to be pretty. Women, you want to be pretty. There's like billions and billions of dollars in the makeup and beauty industry. There's marketing that goes on in that direction. So you want to look good. You want to be happy. Like you don't want to have a bad day. We do whatever we can not to have a bad day, not to feel bad. You want to be hip. You want to kind of be just in touch enough to know what all the acronyms are, to know what the social media hypes are. You kind of want to, some people want to be hip. Some people want to be more talented. They want to have a leg up in the competition, so they want to have the talent and the skills that they need to get ahead. Now, those things in and of themselves, when you're working at trying to better yourself, and if God has put those things on your heart, that's fine. But most of us, the way we check to see how we're doing, right? Because we're all asking that question, how am I doing? When we do that, we go to the land of Ur. And we do this. We say, well, I'm doing well, but that guy's doing a little better, so I want to be a little richer than him. He has a Cadillac, and I want a Mercedes. I want to be richer. Or skinnier. Okay, well, I'm doing better. I'm doing better with my health and fitness goals, but I saw that my classmate, she posted online that she, lost all this weight doing the Whole30. I could be a little skinnier. What if I was a little skinnier or smarter? Okay, everyone comes for the answers to this guy. What if I was a little smarter than him? Like, I want to learn. I want to know what all this stuff means. Taller. I want to be taller. This is an easy one. Just hang out with shorter people. That's very little effort. Just go, make a Craigslist ad. I want short friends. Respond. All right? Prettier. Okay? You hate that you come into work and your makeup's half done and you're rushing and you see, but as long as you're a little bit better than the person that doesn't have any makeup on at all and she's a mess, okay, you're good. You want to be a little prettier. You want to be happier. You don't want people to know that you had a fight with your spouse. You don't want people to know that your kids have been in timeout for 3 weeks. You don't want people to know that. You want people to say, oh, he's happy. Look at how happy he is. Look how happy she is, right? Hipper. You want to have the cutting edge clothes, the cutting edge technology, the cutting edge things in your house. You want that. You want to be a little hipper than the person that you're next to. And you want to be talented-er. I didn't say they were all grammatically correct. All right, but really, you look and go, okay, well, that guy's doing good at his job. I could do better. What if I just did a little bit better? What if I was a little better at the job? What if I got more contracts? What if I got more assignments? What if I got more responsibility? What if I worked a little harder to get that? And so we go to the land of Ur because the way we answer that question of how we're doing comes down to, well, if I'm doing a little better than that person, if I could be a little better than her, then I'll be better. But that makes us really miserable, right? And this doesn't stop with us. It doesn't stop with us. Don't we do this to our spouses? We do. We look at our spouse and go, oh man, if you would go, just try going to the gym. Like, you could just try going to the gym. Maybe, do you have to eat the second piece of cake? Like, do you have to? And this is literally a conversation my wife and I had last night to me. She was like, is the second piece of cake necessary? I'm like, the first one wasn't necessary. I think the second one, you just need to follow through what you commit to. So, like, it was my son's birthday party. I got problems, all right? Just take it easy. So, you start to say that. You're like, do you want to do that? What if you dressed up when we left? I put the mirror in front of the door for a reason. Before you're leaving, just see what's going on. Just take a look, right? And you do that to your spouse. You say, you're not living up to your potential. You could be better than this. And you do that, but really, what are you really worried about? You're really worried about how people see you. Right? Do we do it with our kids? You better believe it. We do it with our kids all the time. Kids, we want our kids to do a lot. She's like the top of her class. Look at him. He's excelling. He has every sport he's involved in. He swims. He plays hockey. He can swim and play hockey at the same time. He can ride a horse while he swims and plays hockey. Like, we want all our kids to have every corner. Like, we want them. And so what we do is we just figure out ways. Oh, they're doing better. If you just try a little harder, live up to your potential. You don't need 8 hours of sleep. Just get up early and go to a row. Just get up early and go, practice your golf swing. You want them to go to Whippeals. You want them to get the championship. You want them to do that. The grades, come on, we're so close to National Honor Society. If you would just study an extra hour, I see the potential in you. Be careful with that. Be careful with how you view it. Here's a good litmus test if you know that this is a problem area for you. Do you get excited when you see other kids get in trouble? Some of you are laughing because you know what I'm talking about. Do you know what I mean? Like, you're talking to a parent and they tell you, like, oh man, my son, I just got a call from the principal's office and he really was disruptive in class. And you're like, your son, no, I can't believe it. Then you put the phone on, you're like, yes. Oh, really? I'm so sorry. I can't believe, because you've gotten 100 calls from the principal's office, right? And we do that. I do that in short term. Like, we take our kids out. Right now, my son is in that phase where every time we go out, he has a public temper tantrum in a restaurant, no matter what. Like, as soon as we cross the threshold of a restaurant, he starts screaming, throws himself on the ground for no reason. I'm like, hey, do you want bacon today? And he's like, yeah, he throws himself on the ground, just screaming. And then I'm like pretending like, oh, he's not like this. And I'm picking him up, dragging him through the restaurant. But then I look over and I see another kid and they're punching the glass in the window, screaming and crying. And I'm like, I'm glad for them. I'm glad that this is happening. He's not as bad as them, right? But really, we do this to our kids. We want them to be better. We want them to walk with us in the land of Ur. Ur has a flip side. Ur has a flip side. It's not just about you want to be better, but you could go, okay, I feel better as long as I know that she or he is heavier than me. Like, I'm not working on my fitness goals that well, but you know what? She's really not. She's really not, okay? They're a little slow. I'm really bad at work. I keep getting bad reviews. I keep getting bad performance reviews, but you know what? They're a lot slower than me, so I'm doing good. I'm really doing good. Honestly, short or, I know that I'm not tall, but man, oh man, I got friends that they're so short, and I get, people, one time somebody asked me if I play basketball, and I'm going to hold on to that, okay? I know that. Okay, I'm in financial ruin. I'm a step away from being in total financial mess, but they're a lot poorer than me. They're really poor. They're a lot nerdier than me. They don't go out anywhere. They don't do anything. I don't hardly go out, but they're really nerdier. And we do that. We look at other people and we want them to do worse. With me, this is where my camp tends to be. And sometimes I'll do it with things like, I sing all the time. Like, I just sing, and I like music, and I like the worship music, and I'll sing songs. And I don't sing as well as Jason. So I'll come in and I'll be singing, and then in the office, and Jason will come in and he'll sing, because he's our worship director. And he sings a little better, and it's a little irritating, a little bit. But I know that I sing better than my 3-year-old. So we put a song on in the radio, and a song on, comes on, and she's singing, and I'm like, you're out of tune. You're horrible. You shouldn't do this. This is bad for you, so I know I'm better than her. So a lot of times with her, we want to be surrounded. We want to see that people are doing a little worse than we are. And then we're like, okay, as long as they're doing worse than me, I'm good. I'm doing good because I don't sound as bad as her. I don't look as bad as her. I'm not as heavy. I'm doing okay. I'm really doing okay. But it doesn't ever end there, does it? Really, it doesn't end there, because what happens is you're not satisfied with Ur. No, you don't want to stay in Ur. What you want to do is you want to go to Est. I want to be the best, right? So what does that mean? Okay, that means a bunch of different things. I want to be the happiest. I want to be the person that, oh man, I've never seen him have a bad day. I've never seen him make a mistake. He is the happiest, richest. I want to be the person, oh yeah, he's the one with all the money. He could go, he's the smart-est. He is the healthy-est. He's the one that he Instagrams every piece of food that he makes, and every piece of food that he makes could go in a magazine. He is so healthy, the liked-est, okay? Again, maybe you have more people around you, that people love you more, and you're like, oh yeah, I'm the one that's most popular in a room. You want that. We have all of that. All of this comes down to the fact that it's easier to look at other people and what they're doing than it is to look to God and look at us and say, I don't like myself. That's hard to do. I'm a little better than she is, but it doesn't matter. The truth is, you could keep going up this ladder. You could keep trying to compare. You could keep trying to compete. But when you look in the mirror, you're still not going to like what you see. It's a problem. It's a real problem. It's gross that we do this. And we do it all the time. Take note of this. You will never be as blank as them. All right? You will never be as blank as them. Do you know why? You're never going to be as rich as them. You're never going to be as smart as them. You're never going to be, you know why? Because them is going to change. You might be good in one area, and then somebody else is going to come along and go, wow, I'm not like this at all. I need more of this. And I'm not that way. So them changes, and then your standard changes, and then before you know it, you're doing the same exact thing. You're never going to be as blank as them. The whole point of this series, Pastor Mike's going to talk about this next week and the following week. The whole point of this, remember, there is no win in comparison. There is no win in comparison. It's a game that we play that no one wins. Not going to happen. There's no finish line. There's no satisfaction. There's no ability for you to reach a certain place when you say, okay, I'm a little better than this, but I'm good. No, there's no win in comparison. And so many times we live like this. Now you say, is this an issue for today? It absolutely is an issue for today. Is this a biblical issue? There is no doubt that it's a biblical issue. In fact, I want to hear from God's word concerning how this plays out. And the person that wrote the most about this, coincidentally, is also a person that was basically the king of Ur, Solomon. He was the wisest person to ever live before Jesus. Wisest human being to ever be on the planet. Solomon was so wise, it says in 1 Kings chapter 30, this was written about him, it's not in your notes. 1 Kings chapter 4, verse 30, it says, in fact, Solomon's wisdom exceeded that of all wise men. He was wiser than everyone and anyone else. His fame spread throughout all of the surrounding nations. So Solomon knew people. He knew how to be wealthy. He knew how to get along with people. He knew how to rule. He knew how to raise money and make money. He was extremely, extremely talented, all by God's grace. God gave him one request. He said, I want wisdom, and God gave him wisdom, and because he was wise, he was able to get anything basically he ever wanted. Now, he has written a couple things in the Bible that are worth you looking at, even if you're not a regular church person, or even if you are not a Christ follower, which I know there are people that come here week after week, and you're like, I'm not really sure, I'm new to this, and that's okay. Proverbs, there are people that have built businesses based on the precepts of the book of Proverbs. But there's another book that he wrote that doesn't get as much headlines as Proverbs, and it's called Ecclesiastes. Now, if you have never opened the Bible before and you open Ecclesiastes, you can read that and be like, okay, this makes sense. Okay, I really see where he's coming from. There's this cynical perspective that Solomon paints a picture of when it comes to human behavior and nature. And it's very, very true as we look at Ecclesiastes chapter 4. So let's take a look at Ecclesiastes chapter 4, verse 4. This is what Solomon says. And this is where the comparison trap comes from. He says, I saw that all toil and all skill and work come from a man's envy of his neighbor. What's that mean? The toil, that four-letter word that we associate with work. Toil is the result of the curse. That's what happens when we sweat for work. That's what happens when we get that bad review, when we tried all we can and we can't make ends meet. That's when we have to stay later and get work done that was messed up, that toil. He said all of that strain that comes from work, all of it is associated with the envy a man has for his neighbor. All of it. He said, isn't this something? That a lot of what's taking place in that toil is because people are looking left, they're looking right, they're looking everywhere to see if they could do a little more, if they could get a little more out of what's going on. And this is how he sums it up in verse 4. He says, this also is vanity, and it is a striving after the wind. That's in verse 4. This also is vanity, and this is a striving after the wind. So when you see that, this is vanity, this is a striving after the wind, what does he mean? That means that there is no winner in this. That means that if you keep doing this, if you keep looking at your neighbor, if you keep looking at those around you to try to make that your standard of whether you're doing well or not, you're going to lose. Now, the holy people, the spiritual people here today and at the cafe and on Facebook, and if you're watching this on Facebook in your PJs, I don't know that you would consider yourself the most spiritual, but we're glad that you're here, all right? And I'm glad that you have PJs on. Congratulations, all right? But wherever you are in this, if you're like, well, I don't really like to try. I just kind of let God do whatever in my life, and I let God just kind of pour over me, and I'm not really going to try. He actually anticipates what people would say about that kind of mindset in verse 5. He says, fools fold their idle hands, leading them to ruin. So he says, if I'm not going to try, if I'm not going to do anything, well, that's foolish too. Because they're going to say, well, I'm just going to not do anything. He says, don't do that. That's not where the error is, folks. That's not where the problem is. The problem is when we start to walk through the land of That's the problem. So it's about trying hard is fine. Working well is fine. Being successful is fine. Having a wonderful marriage, having great kids, that's all well and good. But where we start to lose ground, where we start to get into sin, is when we start to walk through the valley and the land of He kind of drives this point home in Ecclesiastes chapter 4, verses 7 and 8. He says, again, I saw vanity under the sun, one person who has no other, either son or brother. Now, stop right there. He's saying this person isn't responsible for providing for someone. In the Old Testament, that was a big deal. You know, people would provide for their families, people would provide for their children, they'd provide sometimes for their siblings, even their parents. So he says, I've seen people that they don't have anyone that they're responsible for, meaning they're not doing this for their family. Look what he says here. He says, yet there is no end to all their toil. They still keep working just as hard. They still keep moving and trying to get more and trying to gain more. And this is what he says. Their eyes are never satisfied with riches, so they never stop to ask. And have you ever stopped to ask, for whom am I doing all this toiling and depriving myself of pleasure? This, he says, is also vanity, and it's an unhappy business. He said, you've never taken a moment to realize and ask yourself this one question. And the question is, why am I doing all this? Like, to what end? Like, what is it that I'm trying to happen? Because I don't have anyone to provide for. My needs are met. Why am I putting myself in so much turmoil, robbing myself of so much pleasure of what God is doing in my life? For what? Because of the envy of your neighbor. That's why. It's all vanity. It's all unhappy business. And this is very relevant. This was written 3,000 years ago, but boy, oh boy, we could take a lesson from this today. Think about social media. Social media has changed the landscape of how people interact with one another. It really has. But social media has a very, very dark side that scientists and doctors are only starting to come to the edge of. In fact, Instagram, which is a little over 10 years old, people that habitually use Instagram are more likely to be prone to depression. Why? Because Instagram is picture-based. All right? And you could put things on Instagram where you take a picture and you could put a filter there. So if you're kind of, if you look at your face and it's kind of a day where your face isn't agreeing with wanting to look the way you want it to look, right? You can throw a filter on Instagram and you can look like a movie star, just like that, one button. And what happens is kids, and believe it or not, adults too, and believe it or not, older people too, will look at something posted and go, I don't have that. I didn't do that. Or they see that perfect beach vacation, that sunrise. But I've never seen a sunrise like that. All I've ever seen is these dumb Pittsburgh sunrises where it's cloudy and dreary. I've never seen that, right? And so they compare themselves, and it's proning more people to depression and anxiety. This happens also when it comes to fitness. It's not just how people look. Like people that will post their meals. Oh, this is my 28th day of Whole 30. I haven't eaten a carb in 28 days. I don't even remember what bread tastes like. And you post your little picture of your salad with the right amount of berries, and it's got the perfect amount of moisture on the side of the dish, and you're like, and I'm sitting there with my own hashtag. And my hashtag is Betos is open till midnight. My hashtag is I give up today, all right? My hashtag is Jesus said that he was the bread of life, not the protein of life, so I'm going to eat the bread. Now, all that to say, you can put that on a t-shirt if you'd like. For those of you that are not vegan, for those of you that are not willing to give up those carbs. But all of this to say, the social media movement has changed and put us more in the comparison trap than ever before, because we're comparing ourselves to what other people are putting out there, and we're looking at our life with disdain. There was a young lady named Christina ONeal, and a church covered her story. I think she was a member of the church. And here was her story. She was a social media model. Now, that's not a model like the way you're thinking of, like where they model swimsuits or whatever. No. This is a person that will put out like pictures of themselves endorsing products, different things, books that they're reading. Okay, she had like millions of followers, all right, on social media, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all of it. And she would post different things that she was doing. So she'd post a picture of herself on the beach, perfect sunset, picture of herself eating, this is how you make a good meal, all that stuff, put it all together. Okay, and she had this thing on social media. Well, one day she had a meltdown. And she posted a video of herself crying. She had no makeup on. She was just completely herself, and she was sobbing, and she said, I can't do this anymore. They had been paying her, people had been paying her, ready for this, between $2,000 and $4,000 per post. That's how much she was making through affiliate marketing, all right? Now, I want you to imagine, some of you, your brains are turning because you're like, I wonder if I can get $4,000 a post for my cat snoring video that I posted last night. Nobody's paying you for that, okay? So this was all product oriented. So she said, look, let me show you this. She showed a picture of herself on the beach. She goes, I hadn't eaten in 80 hours, and I was sick to my stomach and throwing up, and the photographer wanted to make sure that I had the perfect sunset and the perfect look in my face and I was crying, and I was begging to stop, and it didn't stop. And this one over here, I was with a group of friends, and I just had an argument with them, and they said to make sure you look good and make sure that everything is all together. And she said, and I just wanted to cry for help, and nobody cared because the picture had to be perfect. And she looked at the camera, and she said, all of this is fake. It's not real. And when you start to look at this as reality, it's only going to make you just as hurt as I have been putting this stuff out there. Well, it caused an uproar of people behind her, cheering for her, recognizing and also saying, I do that too. Also saying, look, I posted this and this wasn't true. And I posted this about this person and that wasn't true. Because believe it or not, folks, the things that you are upset about that you see on social media, or the things that people text you, or the things that are put on the web, you might be getting so worked up about looking at something, and it might not even be real. It might not even be real. But this is where we're living. This is the culture that we're living in. And there is, in case you didn't forget, no win in comparison. There's no win in comparison. It's vanity. It's an unhappy business. And the toil, that sweat, that pressure that we put on ourselves, all leads us to nothing. So the point of this series, and Pastor Mike is going to unpackage more of this next week. Here's the point. What if you and I could live our lives in such a way that the only thing that we were ever concerned about when we did something was what God thought about it and what work God was doing in our lives to change us? What if we thought only about that? What would that do? What would that do in your marriage? What would that do in your children's lives? What if you were just concerned about celebrating what God was doing in you, and that you weren't the same person you were yesterday than you were being upset about the person next door who's doing a little better than you? What if when somebody called you and they told you about a windfall that they experienced in their business or in their marriage or in their life, that you were so genuinely excited? Wouldn't that be worth us having that? That's why we're doing this series. Now, I want to bring this to a head for you by asking you 5 questions. These are hard questions. I hate these questions. Remember, before I preach a sermon, I have to first get the sermon. And this is a sermon that I wanted to see if I could return the sermon because I don't want this. These 5 questions killed me. And these are the questions that I think we all got to be wrestling with if we look at the comparison trap and see where we are. So I'm going to go through these, all right? Number 1, here's the first one. Am I exhausted from trying to keep up with blank? Meaning, are there things that I know about my family and friends that I wish I didn't know because it's making me so miserable? I'm so tired of thinking this way. I'm so tired of thinking that they have that or do that. Number 2, are you broke from trying to keep up with blank? Well, they got a new car. Well, they went on a really long, I could go on a long vacation. I could get a new car too. I have to get a line of credit. I have to get a second mortgage. But is it making you broke that you're trying to toil in such a way where you're just trying to keep up with whoever? This one's a heavy one. They get heavier as they go. Number 3, am I allowing what others have to keep me from enjoying what I have? Do you know what I'm saying? Am I allowing what they have to keep me from enjoying what I have? Are you allowing what other people have to keep you from enjoying what you have? So for instance, you buy a house. It's a nice house. It has 8.5-foot ceilings. You're like, these ceilings are so high. It's massive in here. I love it. Then you go to your new friends and they also bought a house in that neighborhood and you go inside their house. They have 10.5-foot ceilings. You're like, oh, these ceilings are nice. You come home to your house and you're like, I'm not living in this stupid sardine can. You can't live like this, 8.5-foot ceilings. Who's going to live like that? Third world country, right? Are we allowing what other people have to keep us from enjoying the gifts that you have? Last 2 are the hardest. Do you enjoy your kids or are you driving them crazy? Now, normally, I take the vantage point of the parent's standpoint and I say, your kids are probably driving you crazy. That's not what I'm asking. Are you enjoying the stage and the season of where your children are, or are you making them nuts with trying to get them to be better versions of who they are? Now, I'm all about pushing your kids. I'm all about getting them to aim for excellence. But what I mean is, are you so wrapped up in making sure that they're the best of the best and they're the strongest and they compete and they do the best and they're so overwhelmed, you overwhelm them? Are you not enjoying the season that they're in? And lastly, the thing about kids, this is what I didn't mention this in other services, but sometimes we get so wrapped up and we're miserable about what the kids are doing and they're not doing enough, but you keep this in mind. Your kids might not be doing what you want them to do, but I want you to know this, and I've talked to parents in the church, and I've talked to people that want children in the church. You ready? You know that there are people in the church that would die to have your kids. Did you know that? They would die just for the opportunity to say that they're the parent of your child. Are you enjoying the kids or are you making them nuts? Last one. Here it is. Who would you secretly enjoy seeing fail? I said secretly. You wouldn't call and say, hey, guess what, Pastor Sam? I heard that guy failed. I'm so excited. No. But who, if they called you right now and they said to you, you know what, my marriage is coming to pieces and my finances they're in the tank or I'm losing everything. Who, if they called you and said that, would you secretly be like, oh boy, I feel a lot better? That's ugly, isn't it? That's an ugly, ugly, ugly revelation of who we are as people. Why are we talking about this in church? What's the point of this in church? Here's a shortcut to kind of get out of a little bit. You ready? Keep this in mind. No matter what's going on in other people's lives, their success is not your failure. All right? So how do we get out of the land of error? Just go no matter what. If they're making more money than you, does that really impact how much money you're making? I mean, really, realistically. Is it keeping you from doing a good job? Is it keeping you from being a better spouse? No. Their success is not your failure. And when we start to view things like this, we're showing the ugliest part of human nature, the sinful side. Because really, comparison pollutes the work of the gospel. Because what's the gospel say? I mean, think about this. What's the gospel say? The gospel says that all of us are wicked and all of us are sinners. And in Christ, we have the ability to be whole. We have the ability to be clean. Christ took our place, took our punishment, took our sin, and made us new. And in his resurrection, we have an opportunity to be made new as well. Now, with that being said, when we compare, what we're saying is, well, I deserve grace, they don't deserve grace. I need grace, but they don't need grace. Like, I need Jesus, but they don't. But the gospel makes every income class, every tribe, tongue, and nation, we're all put on the same level, and that we all need Jesus, we all need his work, we all need his love, and without him, we have no chance. And when we compare ourselves, and when we try to wish bad upon other people, when we try to wish that they were less successful than us, what we're doing is we are forgetting that we need God as much as they need God. We're forgetting that. And it pollutes what God is doing. And also, remember, the same Jesus that went to the cross for us, the same Jesus that died for our sins, the same Jesus that arose from the grave, he said in John chapter 13, I'm going to give you a new commandment. I'm going to give you a new standard. Here's your standard. I want you to love each other the way that I have loved you. I want that to be your standard of how you view those around you. And I don't know if you knew this or not, folks, but you can't love someone that you secretly hope will fail. You can't love someone that you secretly hope will fail. Right? I think that's in your notes. You should write that down. You can't love someone that you secretly hope will fail. Because whenever you compare, you sin. Whenever you compare, you sin. Because you're showing that you don't want them to have the same in Christ that you have. I can't, you can't, we can't be followers of Christ and chase the wind of comparison at the same time. We can't be followers of Christ and chase the wind of comparison at the same time. And some of us, that's one of the reasons why you struggle. That's one of the reasons why you're in pain. That's one of the reasons why you're constantly feeling like you're not enough in spiritual realms. That's why you're not doing enough. All of it comes down to you're comparing yourself to other people. God wants you to look in the mirror. And God wants you to look at him. And God wants you to recognize the work that he's doing in your life. Because nothing ruins the work that God is doing in your life quicker than when you compare his work in your life to his work in someone else's. But we don't have to do that. Let's get out of Ur. Let's start to look at him as our source. Let's start to look at him and the work that he's doing and be joyous and be glad and say that in Christ, through the gospel, through Jesus' love, through the death, burial, and resurrection, and through his hope and his glory, we're enough. He's enough. There's no winning comparison. Let's pray. Father, we thank you for your grace. We thank you for your great work. We thank you that you've challenged us here today. I pray that you would fill our hearts with that repentance that we need right now. And I don't normally do this with every head bowed and every eye closed. If there's somebody here or at the cafe and you would say, I have been walking through the land of Ur and I want to get out. Raise your hand high so I can see. We want to pray for you. Thank you, many hands. Thank you. I'm sick of looking left. I'm sick of looking right. I want to look up to Christ. Thank you, many hands. We want to pray for you. Father, I pray right now for every single person raising their hand here at the cafe, on Facebook. I pray that we would completely turn to you with this. I pray that we would be people that would weep with those who weep. And we would rejoice with those who rejoice. I pray that we would only look to you for what's going on in our lives. I pray that you would become our standard of measurement. I pray that you would become our portion. And I pray right now, if there's anyone here and you do not know Christ as your Savior, the idea of where you would spend eternity unsettles you. If you do not know where you would go when you die, I want you to pray this prayer. It's not the prayer that saves you. It's the fact that Jesus died for your sins. Pray this prayer with me silently. My Heavenly Father, I know that I'm a sinner, but I believe that Jesus died on the cross, took my place, and paid my price. And right now, I trust in his finished work and his resurrection to save me from my sin. If you just prayed that prayer and you meant it, I want you to write that on your connection card and let us know that you did that. Now, for everyone else, let us rejoice in your work, Father. Let us be excited about your presence in our lives. We ask all of this in Jesus' name. Amen.